It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome aboard. We've added a number of stations since the beginning of the year around the nation, and I've been getting some questions, not so much about the show, but about me and my background. Well, I don't spend a lot of time talking about myself on this program, and there's a reason for that. But I think it's a fair question that I should answer for you. First off, let's get something straight. I am not an expert. I'm not an expert fisherman. I'm not an expert hunter. I'm not a crack shot, but I do love to fish. I do love to hunt, and I've spent more time on the range than most folks over the years. I've done that range time, spending 30 years in the Army and law enforcement, and I've done the fishing and hunting pretty much as long as I can remember. And I'm not picky when it comes to the fishing. I love it all. Steelhead, salmon, bass, pike, walleye, trout, crappie, perch, bluegill. It's all good and it's all fun. As for hunting, I will say this. The more time I have to think about a wing shot, the less my chances are of hitting that bird, which is probably why I do better on quail than I do on ducks. I'd also say that few days are better than days spent afield hunting birds in the company of your dog. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I do love fishing and hunting. And as you tune into this program to learn more about these subjects from experts, I turn to experts for our interviews during every show so that both of us can learn something in the process and maybe, just maybe, be a little more successful in the field or on the water the next time we go. One other thing. I'm a big champion of conservation. That's why we support backcountry hunters and anglers, and why you hear news from other conservation organizations on this show too. The fish, the birds, the animals, and the land, they are all a finite resource in a world of exploding populations and of interests that don't necessarily care about these resources. That's why you'll hear about conservation issues on this show and why we hope you'll become a champion in ways large or small to protect our fishing and hunting heritage as well as our natural environment. So there you go. There's a little bit about yours truly. But, as they say, enough about me. Let's tell you what we've got for you this week on the show from the folks I think of as the real experts in the field. One of them is Scott Linden. A few years ago, he hosted the show this radio program is modeled after, and it was called Field and Stream Radio. And like this show, it was heard around the country. Today, Scott, who, unlike me, has a face for TV as opposed to radio, hosts the long-running television show Wingshooting USA, which starting this weekend can be seen on the Discovery Channel Sunday mornings at 5 a.m., both Pacific Time and Eastern Time. Scott is an expert when it comes to upland birds and the dogs that hunt them, and he's got some great advice about first aid gear you ought to be carrying in the field for your four-legged best friend. On the conservation front, we'll be chatting with Nello Picinich from the Coastal Conservation Association. There are some big problems with the salmon and steelhead runs in the Pacific Northwest, and one of the things taking a literal bite out of these fish runs are the sea lions lining up to eat them in the rivers in an all-you-can-eat frenzy. Fortunately, legislation is moving forward that may address this, and Nello will tell you more about it. We've got hunting for you, too. If you've ever wanted to hunt pronghorn or antelope, as most folks call them, you've probably considered going to the cowboy state to do so. Well, Richy Harrod, the host of the Northwest Outdoorsman television show, has come out with a new ebook available on Amazon about how to prepare for a successful antelope hunt in Wyoming, and he'll join us to share some of that information with you today. Before we talk about taking care of our hunting dogs, about sea lions eating too many salmon, and about getting ready to tag a pronghorn, along with several very interesting stories about firearms, fishing, and more, we need to talk a little bit about a West Coast saltwater fishery not getting the attention it deserves. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we're taking you to Southern California. That's where we're going to talk to Joe Sarmiento, also known as SoCal Salty. You can check out his website at socalsalty.com. He just wrote a really interesting article for BD Outdoors about the great fishing going on out of San Diego for bluefin tuna and the lack of people taking advantage of it. Joe, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, Don. How are you?
I'm doing good. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this bluefin tuna fishery? Is this unusual to have the fishing so good there near San Diego?
Had some really good fishing the last few years because we're just coming out of an El Nino cycle where we had some warmer water, and so we had some of these Mexican warm water visitors. But this bluefin fishing that's going on right now, I really think is separate from what happened with El Nino. And right now, within overnight range, we're seeing fish anywhere from 20 to over 200 pounds. So on any given day, you could catch a fish of a lifetime out there.
As a matter of fact, I know you wrote in the article, a recent boat came back with a 211-pound bluefin tuna. That's absolutely amazing. But here's the thing. The boats are ready to take people, but people don't want to go. And that's the second half of your article. You call it Bluefin Excuses. Why don't people want to take advantage of this really unique fishery for some really big tuna?
I think a big part of it's just money, John. Because we've had this amazing fishing for the last few years now, people went on more trips, people bought new gear to accommodate these bigger fish, and I think after 3 solid years of it, maybe the wives and girlfriends are wanting to go on a vacation instead of spending money on fishing. So a lot of people just don't have the cash to go, and like you noted, both are having a hard time getting off the dock, or they're going off the dock light just to post a count. The other part of it is, bluefin, it may just be the toughest fish that we have to catch down here. And, there are days where you can drop down to 15-pound fluorocarbon, size 2 hooks, just to get a bite. And then when you get a bite, now you're fighting some 50, 80, 100-pound fish on 20-pound tests or 15-pound tests. And oftentimes the results aren't good. So I think it's a combination of those two factors, just that these fish are hard to catch, and, the fact that people are just a little light in the wallet, I think.
Something else you mentioned I thought was really interesting was the taste of bluefin. Not as good as other species, according to some of the anglers out there.
I don't buy that for a second. I think that's more driven off of the second half of what I was telling you, that bluefin are just harder to catch. And a lot of people are saying they're waiting for yellowfin. Yellowfin, when you get them going, they'll bite the paint off the boat. I mean, some of the deckhands will tell you crazy stories about jack pulling yellowfin with a pickle or a bare hook. And, that's just not a thing with bluefin. They're just a lot harder to catch. So I think it's more driven off the fact that it's harder to get a bite out of these fish. And so, that's a lot of what's holding people back right now.
All right. Well, nice to put that one into perspective. That really was an excuse. Last question for you. How long do you expect this bluefin fishery to keep going, and when is that fantastic off-the-charts yellowfin tuna fishery going to take off?
It's funny because one of the boats that I go on is the New Loan out of Point Loma Sport Fishing. The captain is a good buddy of mine, Adam Williams, and his boss, the owner of the boat, was on a radio talk show about a month or so ago, and he was saying, you know what? We have gotten through an entire year now where we have caught bluefin every single month of the year, which kind of blew me away. But he's right. It seems like these fish, they're around to stay. There's a lot of bait in the water. The conditions are good, and they just seem to be happy here, and they're hanging out. So I don't think the bluefin are going anywhere. The yellowfin, on the other hand, that's really driven off of water temperatures. They had that hurricane down south, and that pushed some of that warmer water up this way. So probably towards the end of the summer here, we might see some of that action. I'm hopeful.
Well, folks, if you want to take advantage of this bluefin tuna fishery, again, 20, 50, 90, all the way up to 200 plus pounds, one place to start to find out some boats to go on and to even go on a hosted trip with Joe is his website. You'll find it at SoCalSalty.com. That's SoCalSalty.com. Joe is on Facebook too and Twitter. Just look for SoCal Salty. And if you want to read this great article, Bluefin Excuses, go to bdoutdoors.com. Joe, always a pleasure to have you on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks for having me on, John.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. We make products for the relentless fishermen who know that big fish are caught by those who put in the work. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA, Fish Fighter products won't let you down. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. I am very privileged to have Scott Linden on the line. I've always considered him a role model of sorts. He's the former host of Field and Stream and Outdoor Life Radio and the current host of Wingshooting USA, which July 8th debuts on the Discovery Channel, 5 a.m. Pacific Time and Eastern Time, the first hunting show ever to land on the Discovery Channel. You don't want to miss this. Scott, welcome to the show.
Good to be back with you, John.
So, Scott, I am planning on going to Montana in October to hunt for pheasant, maybe some sharp-tailed grouse, and it occurs to me that I'm probably like a lot of dog owners, that I don't carry a first aid kit for my Springer Spaniel in the field, and I really should. So with that in mind, let's talk about some of the more common injuries that you've seen with your dogs hunting upland birds over the years and things we ought to carry to cover those injuries.
Yeah, and my first comment would be, John, that please do carry something. It doesn't need to be a big kit. It could fit in your pocket, but an ounce of prevention and all that jazz. The things that I see most in the field with bird dogs are stuff in their eyes, stuff between their toes or inhaled through their nose and down into their throat and lungs, and then bumps, bruises, and cuts and gouges. To a great degree, all of those can be fixed with stuff that you probably ought to be carrying anyway if you're out in the field for yourself. But there are some things that are in my bird hunting vest specifically for dogs, definitely.
So let's talk about the things that they're inhaling, the things that they're getting in their eyes. Are we just washing that out with water and with our fingers, or something a little more complicated than that?
No, that's exactly right. There are several things that you can do to get that crud out of their eyes, and it's everything from little rocks to dirt to bits of leaf and that sort of thing. You want to be a little careful about it, and you want to train your dog to put up with this kind of doctoring before you're in the field, or else it's just a rodeo. I carry two things that seem to solve most of those problems. The first is a little squirt bottle full of distilled water. Now, a lot of people used to think saline solution like contact wearers carry is best, but the veterinary ophthalmologists I've talked with say distilled water is better. Teach your dog to hold still, basically wash out their eye by holding the lower lid down a little and just squirting some in there, and that'll get most of the crud out. If you don't do it with that, use a Q-tip and gently, carefully, just kind of touch the crap that's still in there, and a lot of it will just stick to the cotton. That's the easiest way to do it.
Let's talk about lacerations. I actually talked to a hunter a couple of months ago who says he brings a stapler of all things to the field, which seemed a little extreme to me, but, you know, I do have dogs that like to run into barbed wire fences from time to time.
Yeah, and, you know, I have a surgical stapler, too. I don't carry it in the field with me, mainly because I still am not convinced that you want to close up a wound in the field that well because of the infection risk. Now, a lot of folks, including veterinarians, would say, well, yeah, but we can always open it back up. But I'd rather carry some other things and perform some basic first aid. The first thing I want to do with a cut or a gouge or even a puncture wound is I want to get it as clean as I can with that squirt bottle of distilled water. Hydrogen peroxide, not a good idea. In fact, that'll kill tissue, so you want to be careful with that. Once that's done, and presuming, and I apologize, what kind of a Red Cross card-carrying guy am I if I don't suggest that the first thing we want to do is get the bleeding under control?
Right.
Toward that end, I've got a couple other things in my little package. The first is probably the only decent thing to come out of the Vietnam War, and that's that gauze that you put on a wound that will cause almost immediate blood clotting to take place. And there's a couple different versions out there, but I've got some of that in my dog kit. And then another thing I like to carry is EMT gel, which will help the healing process, and it will also help with that blood clotting. So both of those together, and then a good bandage with a dressing underneath the bandage, that's how I will probably deal with most skin breakage.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Scott Linden, host of Wingshooting USA, about treating your dog in the field for the injuries they may have and what to carry with you. Porcupines, that's a problem that everybody seems to run into. How do you get those porcupine quills out and continue with your hunt?
Well, you know, I have a saying, a good friend will hold your dog, a great friend will hold your dog while you pull out porcupine quill. I carry a hemostat, just like the surgeons use, because number one, it will lock. Number two, it's a little bit more delicate than, say, a Leatherman tool or a pair of needle nose pliers. And you got to get on those very quickly. And if you've never had to deal with porcupine quills, things you got to watch for in particular are anything in the eyes and anything in the mouth. Dogs will, of course, be trying to bite a porcupine, so check the mouth very carefully. And if there's any doubt in your mind, then get your dog to a vet, because a porcupine quill will migrate through a dog's body, just like all the what we call the mean seeds, the foxtails and the cheatgrasses, and could do extensive damage. I hunted in Colorado once with a pointer named One-Eyed Molly, so guess where that quill came out?
Yep, I get it. And here's another question. When it comes to quills, I have heard that you should cut the quill to let the air out, and that helps. Is that true or just an old wives' tale?
I think it's an old wives' tale. I've never conducted a scientific experiment. The folks who have a lot more experience at this, including veterinary professors and that sort of thing, say that is truly just a myth. And you want to grab onto those quills as quickly as possible and pull straight out. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just start pulling ASAP.
Last question, rattlesnake bites.
I vaccinate my dogs, and if you do any of the research, you'll find out, number one, that vaccine doesn't work on all the rattlesnakes in the country, but it may have a positive effect on most of them. Most dogs probably aren't going to die from a rattlesnake bite anyway. It's all about the post-bite treatment, whether it's keeping the dog immobile, managing for hydration and infection, but you do want to take some precautions. The vaccine is simple, it's easy. I don't have the heart to put my dog through what they call snake breaking procedure. It uses an electric training collar on 11, and I don't want my dog to make the connotation between a electric collar and negative experiences, so I don't do that. But you want to be careful, especially early in the season.
Well, there you go, folks. Some great advice from Scott Linden, a man who knows all about dogs and upland bird hunting for things you should carry in the field for the most common injuries that they may receive. Again, catch his show, Wingshooting USA, on the Discovery Channel. Starts this weekend, July 8th. 5 a.m. Pacific Time and Eastern Standard Time. It's the first hunting show ever to air on the Discovery Channel. You don't want to miss this. Wingshooting USA airs on plenty of other stations too. Great show from a great host. Scott, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
My pleasure. Good to talk with you, and be safe out there.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products are designed and built for you right here in the USA. Fish Fighter products are used by the top fishing guides in the Northwest because they know having the right equipment is imperative to a successful fishing trip. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, Fish Fighter products makes the gear you can count on. Find out more at fishfighterproducts.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Cruz through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. There's a lot going on in the Pacific Northwest right now when it comes to salmon fisheries. And with us here to help break it down is Nello Picinich. He is the executive director of the Coastal Conservation Association in Washington State. Nello, know you just got back from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate you having us on the radio this morning.
So, Nello, pretty big news out of our nation's capital. The U.S. House has actually approved legislation to help fisheries managers control problem sea lions in the Columbia River. Why don't you briefly tell our listeners about the problem that sea lions are causing our salmon runs, not just in the Columbia, but also in the Willamette River, and how this legislation helps to fix it?
Yeah, thanks, John. Let's get into some of the details. It's unfortunately become a case of imbalance between predator and prey in the river, and we need to do something about it. According to officials last year, sea lions consumed at least 9% of steelhead and almost 5% of the spring chinook trying to cross over Bonneville Dam, and as we know, both those species are protected under the Endangered Species Act. According to some other research, about 45% of spring chinook inexplicably disappear between the mouth of the Columbia and Bonneville Dam, and scientists believe that sea lions are primarily to blame for most of that 45% loss. The population of California sea lions has grown from 30,000 in the 70s to over 300,000 today. And I just got to tell you, John, real quick, I grew up in Seattle, and thinking back to the Ballard Loch sea lion predation issues of just a few decades ago, it makes us realize that if something isn't done, we could be looking at extinction for some of the more vulnerable runs of fish. So getting into the legislation, CCA and our partner organizations have been working on the issue for many years now, and we're seeing some progress. You just mentioned that the House of Representatives passed H.R. 2083. I believe it's entitled the Endangered Salmon and Fisheries Predation Act.
So, Nello, I understand that this measure had broad bipartisan support here in the Northwest.
Yeah, that is true. Every member of the Oregon and Washington delegation, Democrats and Republicans, supported the bill. What the legislation essentially does is allows for additional selective removal of more sea lions from the Columbia and its tributaries, including the Willamette. This gives our fisheries managers in Oregon, Washington, and the Columbia River Treaty Tribes a better ability, I would say, to make efficient, responsible decisions regarding the management and removal of these problem sea lions. bipartisan bills like this are impressive, and the companion bill in the Senate, which is S3119, is also gaining momentum. Senator Cantwell of Washington and Senator Risch of Idaho, again, a Democrat and Republican working together, they've co-sponsored the bill, and we're hopeful that it will go through this year. And I'm just going to add real quick, John, I think the increasing predation of salmon in Puget Sound by harbor seals is also a serious concern and should garner some attention at the federal level as well.
Well, and I want to transition to that because this legislation, it is affecting salmon in the Columbia River and the tributaries like the Snake River, hence the sponsorship by the Idaho senator, and obviously Oregon like the Willamette, but it doesn't affect sea lion and seal predation in Puget Sound, does it?
It does not. No, this bill has been in the works here now for a number of years, actually, at the federal level. And it has been focused only on the Columbia River, and it will, as the bill is written now, and the Senate companion bill, it will stay that way, I believe.
However, when it comes to Puget Sound, there may be a bright spot for salmon, and it's coming from an unlikely source. The plight of the orca whale. Numbers seem to be on a slow decline, and the orca whales in Puget Sound, unlike other orca whales, Puget Sound orca whales feed exclusively on Chinook salmon. Chinook salmon numbers are declining. The governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, says we need to do something about it, and I understand things are happening in terms of increasing hatchery production.
Yep, that is right, John. And just jumping back here a little while, there's been a huge reduction in the amount of salmon production from Washington State hatcheries from 2000 through 2000, well, through today. We're seeing those effects of the reductions in terms of the southern resident orcas suffering from a lack of salmon to eat, and I would add also that fishing seasons being severely constrained as well. Orcas, as we know, are an iconic species in Washington State. Their decline has helped garner more attention and subsequently funding for hatchery production.
So, Nello, it's great things are happening, but let's talk about funding for these hatcheries. What's the state doing?
Yeah, John, just this last legislative session, I'm just going to hit on all the dollars that we helped work on, along with some other organizations and our lobbyists in Olympia. But the supplemental operating budget, John, $837,000 in additional state funding to increase hatchery production throughout the Puget Sound, the coast, and Columbia River. All those fish out in the ocean, as we know, benefits the orcas. The supplemental capital budget had $130,000 to conduct a comprehensive review, identifying more opportunities for increased hatchery production, again, with a focus on orcas. And then on top of that, in the supplemental capital budget, $665,000 for hatchery infrastructure improvements to increase Chinook production. Overall, that's $1.6 million to increase production and infrastructure, mostly targeted for orcas. And I would just add that the budget requires consistency with state and federal law and salmon conservation requirements.
All right, well, we're going to have to leave it at that. But bottom line is this, folks. Good news for salmon. Good news for orcas. If you're a sea lion tuning in today, bad news for you. If you want to find out more about the Coastal Conservation Association and the work they're doing, couple websites to steer you to. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, go to ccapnw.org. You can go to the Oregon chapter site or the Washington chapter site. If you want to see what they're doing on a national level, go to cca.org. That's the Coastal Conservation Association. They are dealing with conservation issues for our fisheries around the nation, and they do so with angler interests in mind. Nello, thanks for taking the time to share this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
You're welcome, John. Thank you for having us.
Changing topics, we've got one heck of a fish story for you out of California. From the fish sniffer, we learn Ryan Hollister was trolling for trout about a month ago on New Melones Lake, when much to his surprise, he hooked a bottom-dwelling brown bullhead, a subspecies of catfish, in the middle of the water column. The 14-inch fish didn't put up much of a fight, and Hollister was in the process of releasing it when he saw something with a scaly diamond pattern in the bullhead's mouth. When Hollister pulled his hook out, a rattlesnake came out with it. Fortunately, the rattler was dead, but the snake, which was actually longer than the bullhead that ate it, appears to have exacted some revenge before he got stuck in the mouth of that fish. It just goes to show, fish will eat just about anything, and sometimes like us humans, they don't make very good choices. Sticking with fishing stories, you and I, as anglers, we have to do the right thing if we want to protect the resource. That's one of the things we just talked about with Nello, but it happens in cases both large and small. Take the case of an angler at Swan Falls Dam in southwestern Idaho recently. He saw another angler reel in a 2-foot-long sturgeon. Now, sturgeon, you can catch them, but you've got to release them on the Snake River, and this angler, he wasn't doing it. So, the first angler told him, hey, you can't keep that. That's a catch and release fishery only. That sturgeon catcher, he decided he was keeping that fish and driving home with it, and that's what he did, driving to Meridian, Idaho. However, the first angler, he was an excellent witness, got a license plate on the vehicle, provided a great description, contacted Idaho Fish and Game authorities, and they met that sturgeon catcher at his home, found him with the sturgeon in hand. He fessed up to it, lost his sturgeon, got a ticket. He's going to end up paying a fine, and he's going to lose his fishing privileges too. So, to the first angler, way to go. Good job. You're a great example to the rest of us who want to stop poaching wherever it takes place in these United States. Our thanks to Idaho Fish and Game for giving us the scoop on this story. Stick around. We've got a whole bunch more of the outdoors coming your way, to include information about a very affordable 9mm concealed carry pistol you may want to check out, and a conversation with Richy Harrod, host of the Northwest Outdoorsman, about preparing now for an antelope hunt in Wyoming.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. Fish Fighter products are used by the top fishing guides in the Northwest because they know having the right equipment is imperative to a successful fishing trip. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our show. It's Sportsman's Cove Lodge, and many anglers who have been there will tell you it really is Alaska's best lodge. Sportsman's Cove Lodge sits on a salmon highway full of kings and silvers. There's halibut too, and there are some really big ones. Finally, with decades of experience taking care of customers, Sportsman's Cove Lodge knows how to treat you right from start to finish. Ready to book your trip of a lifetime? Then call Sportsman's Cove Lodge at 800-962-7889. That's 800-962-7889. 800-962-7889 for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Ranger Station.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting, as in Smokey Bear. We were about to head home after a bonfire, and Smokey said the fire wasn't actually out. He said if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
Did you know that 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans?
No kidding.
I'm a forest ranger. We never kid.
Sorry.
Kidding. If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Cruz through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors in key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. We collaborate with elected leaders to keep public lands in public hands. We're Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, with membership in all 50 states and Canada. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. This portion of the show is brought to you by Fish Fighter Products. They are the innovative company based in Mountain Home, Idaho, that makes accessories for your fishing boat. Accessories that makes your time on the water more efficient and easier so you can spend more time fishing. Find out more at fishfighterproducts.com. And if you are listening to our show in the area around Portland, Oregon, drop by Stevens Marine to see some of Fish Fighter's products on display. Let's start things off today with a firearms review. There are a lot of us who carry a subcompact pistol for self-defense purposes. Personally, I carry a .380, a Sig Sauer P238, which I would highly recommend. But I'll be the first to admit, I sometimes wish I had something a little more powerful. Enter the 9mm subcompact category of firearms. There's some good ones out there, and now there's a new entry, the Ruger EC9S, which is not only a small handgun with a healthy punch, but a pistol that comes in at an incredibly low price. Its MSRP, $299, and you can find it on the marketplace new for as low as $230. The question, though, is how good of a gun is it? After all, don't you get what you pay for? Jordan Michael, writing for Guns America, put the Ruger EC9S to the test and was surprised to find it definitely exceeded his expectations. The firearm is almost an exact copy of Ruger's LC9 pistol, but cost $100 less due to streamlined manufacturing by Ruger. Michael found the firearm to be a good, no-frills option for beginners or for those on a budget. He also found this pistol to be quite accurate at the 7-yard line and pretty good out to 20 yards as well. Better still, the firearm experienced no jams or other issues that prevented it from firing. Michael's final summary, Ruger's new budget-friendly handgun is a great buy for anyone looking for a self-defense firearm that won't break the bank. It doesn't come with all the bells and whistles, but Ruger didn't sacrifice functionality when they reduced costs. If you can get the muzzle pointed in the right direction and pull the trigger, the EC9S will follow through. That, my friends, is a pretty good review for a very affordable pistol. In other news, it's summertime and it's already time to think about preparing for your next big game hunt. That's why we've got Richy Harrod with us. He is the host of the Northwest Outdoorsman, a television show that's seen on Wild TV and the Pursuit Channel and several other outlets around the nation. He's got a brand new ebook available for the low price of $2.99. It's titled Preparing for Successful Hunting, Antelope in Wyoming. Richy, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, John, for having me. It's great to be talking to you again.
So, Richy, this ebook, it's about 40 pages, pretty quick read. When it comes to this, is this a story of you and your dad and friends hunting, or is it a how-to in terms of how to prep for a successful antelope hunt in Wyoming?
Well, it's actually a little of both. It's really not a how-to book. It's a story about our trip in 2011 to Wyoming to antelope hunt. But during the course of this story, I talk about how we prepared for this hunt and all the things that you would need to, go on a trip like this so far away from home.
It is July. Most of the tags have been sold. There's going to be some purchase tags left over this month, but the areas where they're available, I understand, they might not be areas you can necessarily access because it's mostly private land.
That's actually correct. When you plan a trip to go to Wyoming for antelope hunting, you put in for points in the period January through May,
And every unit has a draw, and some take less points than others, but most of them that have quality antelope require about 5 to 6 points. So you can put in for preference points and just build those anytime between July 3rd and October 31st. And once you have, 4 or 5, 6 points built up, then you can apply for the actual tag in that January through May 31st time frame.
Now, on the other hand, I know you can pay some private landowners what's basically called a trespass fee so you can get on their land to hunt. So it is possible to still get a license or a tag this summer and go hunting in Wyoming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is possible. And just from experience, I've been there twice now. Some of those units that have a lot of private land in them, they're more than willing to let you hunt in a lot of places, but they're actually fairly crowded because a lot of people are doing just that. That's their strategy. So my suggestion is take the extra time and build your preference points up and plan for the trip. And that you'll have a much better successful hunt.
All right. So for those that do have a tag and those that are going to ignore us and buy that license anyway, it's July. What should they be doing now to prepare for a successful hunting trip for antelope in Wyoming?
Well, when you go to a trip like that far away, it's really important that you start thinking about what you're going to haul to Wyoming. And the way we did it is we used a cargo trailer and my pickup, and we put in a couple of four-wheelers in that cargo trailer and all our camp. So you kind of have to think about what you're going to take to camp in a place like that, just because you can really load your vehicle down, and you might have to take 2 rigs, and that adds cost. So, right now is the time to plan on what things you would actually take in your camp. A wall tent, 4-wheelers are a good thing if you don't have those. Figuring out if you can borrow them from someone and making those arrangements. Buy fuel when you get there so you're not carrying it. Fill your water when you get there so you're not carrying it. So there's just a lot of logistics that go on right now, and that's kind of the main thing they should be doing this time of year.
Outside of the logistics, outside of the planning in terms of Google Maps or Onyx or those other resources, is there anything people can do out in the field or at the range now to prepare for that hunt and be successful?
Yeah, a little bit depends on how you plan to hunt, right? So we hunted with rifles, even though we're avid bow hunters. We hunted with rifles, and so, as a bow hunter, that means I needed to practice with my rifle, shooting my rifle, learning ballistics, trying to figure out exactly how much drop for distance and all those kinds of things that most rifle hunters are pretty good at. So you really need to spend some time shooting your rifle because you're likely in the Wyoming landscape to have to take pretty far shots. And so, it's really important to learn your rifle well and learn those bullet ballistics and practice.
Well, there you go, folks. There's some great tips from Richy Harrod about preparing for a successful hunting trip for antelope in Wyoming. If you want to get his brand new ebook, it's only $2.99. What a deal indeed. Just go to Amazon.com, type in Richy Harrod. It's spelled R-I-C-H-Y, Harrod, H-A-R-R-O-D. Now, when you do that, Rocky Horror, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, is going to pop up. But look over to the side. It's going to say, did you mean Richy Harrod? And you just push yes. Yes, I did. And you will see his brand new ebook, Preparing for Successful Hunting, Antelope in Wyoming, available for $2.99. Get it, read it, and be prepared for a successful hunt this fall. Richy, thanks for sharing this with us on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, John.
I always love to hear from Richy, and while you're online buying his ebook, check out our website. You'll find it at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com, and we've got a Facebook page too. Just look for it at America Outdoors Radio. We're always posting information there, info that doesn't always make it on the air. By the way, if you missed a recent show, we've got you on demand. That's right. You can hear us through several platforms to include YouTube, Stitcher, and Podbean. All you have to do is look for America Outdoors Radio. You'll find us in a hurry. Another place to find us online is Saturday mornings from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Time. That's when we air on talkamericaradio.us. It's the new voice of conservative talk radio. It's got a great lineup, and we are proud to be part of it. A quick programming note for those of you listening to our Pacific Northwest edition of this show on KJR 950 Seattle Sports Radio. Stick around because we've still got one more local segment for you after our national show ends. And unfortunately, it is time for us to leave most of you listening to this national edition for another week. However, I hope you enjoyed what was for many a long Independence Day weekend, one that many spent camping and in the outdoors. Personally, I think that's a pretty good way to celebrate the freedoms we enjoy in our country today. Here's hoping you're blessed with both good health and good times in the week ahead, and that some of those times may be on the water or in the field. Remember, it is your country and your outdoors.